The TILDA datasets are available for download through the Public Data Archives ISDA and the ICPSR. The versions of these datasets are known as anonymized microdata files. Not all of the TILDA data can be included in the anonymized microdata files, as this data can be considered to be highly sensitive or potentially identifiable. Any data judged as such may have anonymization actions applied to it, such as removing the data, top coding, bottom coding, or deriving new variables by merging with other variables. In cases where data contains values with low frequencies at either or both ends of the distribution, TILDA will top or bottom code these values to protect participant confidentiality. For example, in TILDA, there are low frequency counted the lower and the upper ends of the age distribution, which is a risk for participant identification. TILDA groups the values at both ends of the distribution to remove this risk, and so we can include the data in the public release datasets. For example, we can see on the age variable in Wave 1 of TILDA, participants aged less than 50 years of age are grouped into one group at the bottom end of the distribution, while participants aged 80 years and older are grouped into one group at the upper end of the distribution. We also see examples where some data may contain specific values throughout or at different stages of the distribution. Again, these values may be potentially identifiable, so TILDA will group the data into different bands so we can release it. In some of the financial variables this occurs. For example, in the assets section, we ask TILDA respondents how many assets they own and how much income they receive from these assets. Only a small group of respondents are asked this question, and the variable contains specific values throughout the distribution. As such, TILDA groups the values throughout the variable into different bands so we can remove the potential for identification and still include the data in the public release. We can see in a frequency of the AS115 variable, the variable has been grouped into different categories or bands throughout the variable, and as such, the frequency counts are high enough that we can release it in the public data. In some cases, we can't apply just top or bottom coding or creating bands throughout the variable, as the data is so identifiable as a variable on its own it can't be released. Where possible, TILDA will recode the variable or group a number of variables together so that we can release the data in an anonymized format which still remains valuable for research. For example, TILDA respondents are asked about doctor-diagnosed conditions at each wave of TILDA. A number of incident conditions are sensitive and identifiable, and we can't add these to the public dataset in their original format. From Wave 2 onwards, to counteract this, we derive new variables using ICD-10 diagnostic codes to group individual health conditions together. Taking an example of this, our ICD-10 code _10 details any participants with an incident case of a respiratory disease. Rather than including the individual variables, these will group participants who have responded yes to any of the respiratory conditions TILDA asks about into response code 1 in the dataset. We provide supporting documentation for each of the public release datasets. All of these are available on the TILDA website, tilda.tcd.ie. 3 main documents are available for each of the waves: the TILDA release guide, the derived variables codebook, and a variable anonymization actions book. The TILDA release guide contains information about the target population and the design of TILDA, how variables are labeled, how TILDA calculates weights, health assessment variables, missing value codes, and a wealth of other information. For example, if we look at the document, we can see a section on variable naming, which informs us that variables from the CAPI interview use a standard naming convention, taking the 2-letter module code, which are provided in Table 2.2, such as pH, physical health, and then followed by a 3-digit question code. This means we can refer back to the questionnaire to find this specific question and how the question was asked and the response options available. TILDA also has a number of conventional standard response options, such as, for example, -1, which states that the question was not applicable or was skipped due to routing patterns in the questionnaire. The health assessment variables are also detailed in the release guide. The guide provides information on how the test was carried out, any specific notes about the test, such as in the timed up and go, how respondents wore regular footwear, and details of assistive devices were included, and also the variables that are included in the public dataset, which correspond to the specific health assessment test. The release guide also contains all the information on any changes since the last release of this particular dataset, such as any variables which were added, changed, or potentially removed. The variable anonymization guide is also available for each of the public datasets. This details whether a variable has been dropped, top-coded, bottom-coded, has had no change, or if a new variable is derived instead of this variable. We can see from the guide, for example, CS006 has stated that it has been dropped from the public dataset, so you will not be able to find this in the dataset. PH201_08 has been recoded into our ICD-10 diagnostic codes, and PH202A has had no change and will appear in the dataset as is, corresponding with the CAPI questionnaire. Each of the public datasets also include a derived variables codebook, which details any of the variables created following the interview and how these were created. The TILDA public datasets are available through ISDA and the ICPSR archives. These are both linked directly from the TILDA website, tilda.tcd.ie. If we go to the data section of the TILDA website, there's a sublink for accessing the data, which contains direct links to both ISDA and the ICPSR. On the ISDA page, they detail all of the waves of TILDA which are currently available, and within each link, all of the documentation pertaining to that wave is available. To access the dataset, ISDA provide a data request form for research purposes if this is for your own research, which you can sign and send to ISDA by email. And if you wish to request the dataset for teaching purposes, there's a data request form for this also. Once you submit the form, ISDA will review it and revert to you if they have any questions. Following acceptance of the application, you will be provided with a link to download the dataset. For any further questions on this, there's a frequently asked questions section on the ISDA website. To download from the ICPSR, we can go back to the TILDA website, into the accessing data part, and we have a direct link for the ICPSR here also. Each of the available waves of TILDA are detailed here, and if you wish to request use of the TILDA dataset from the ICPSR, you can register for an account, after which you will be given access to download each of the datasets and also some additional tools on the website, such as the ability to analyze some of the data online. All of the TILDA documentation is also available here. If you're using the TILDA public datasets, please acknowledge that you access the TILDA data through either the ISDA or the ICPSR public data archives in your paper and your bibliography. For more details on how to correctly acknowledge this, please go to the ISDA website, where it's detailed how you should acknowledge the citation requirements for each of the waves, and also ISDA requests that you notify the data archive of any publications where you have used the data. The TILDA public dataset may not be sufficient for your research. The TILDA Researcher microdata file contains a more extensive and detailed list of the variables that TILDA collects. Variables which may have been anonymized for use in the public dataset are often available in their original format in the AMF. Not all the variables are available. For example, name and address will still be removed as they are just too identifiable. All researchers can apply for use of the AMF through the on-site hot desk facility that TILDA provides. This hot desk facility is currently only available in the TILDA offices in Dublin, but to request the application form, you can contact tilda.hotdesk@tcd.ie.